Hello everyone! I have a mini microphone and I thought we could chat today because it's been a while and I have a lot to catch you up on. This year's been pretty rough, I would say. Possibly one of the worst years of my life. But but I'm actually doing really great right now and have processed a lot of what's happened and reflected on how I got through it. And I thought I would kind of just share it with you because I think it could help other people who are in a similar situation. So I'm not going to drag on about my woes, but I'm going to give you like a quick timeline as to what's been happening in my life this last year. So right off the bat in 2022, I was quite isolated from everybody. Obviously, like January, February are miserable months in Canada because it's so fucking cold, you can't do anything. But I also just like wasn't anybody's priority, so I didn't really get to see anybody. My friends were preoccupied, my family had shit going on, and then I had a little unrequited love to the side, so like very in my head, felt very lonely. March was a good month for me, and if you've been watching my videos, you would have seen that I uploaded a video where I recorded every day of March, and I was so glad that it just happened to be that one because it was getting warmer out, I was going on little road trips and experiencing different things for the first time. I started socializing again and then started dating one of my best friends of 2 years, and it was just like such a fun time until the end of March. I started having health issues again, which if you don't know what it's about, neither do I because the doctors don't know either. Basically I have some sort of thing that is like colitis or Crohn's that has a full body infection and it makes me in pain and I have to eat antibiotics all the time, be on lots of meds. I have little procedures or surgeries and they hurt, and then I have to keep doing that over and over and over again. So I was having health issues again, and that always really fucks with me mentally because when you're in pain like 24/7, it's very hard to feel chipper. And so yeah, I was like hospitalized for a while, got on meds, had a surgery. The day that I got my stitches out, I ended up getting COVID. And my immune system was already so low that like I genuinely thought I was gonna die. Like I had to go back to the hospital. I spent, I don't even know, 12, 13 hours there. Just dozing off to sleep, waking up, crying, like going back to sleep, crying, waking up. Like it was just gross and awful, not a good time. And let me preface, on top of this, like I don't get sick pay when I have to take time off to go to the hospital and go to the doctor. So as soon as I get sick, I'm losing money because I can't work, as well as using the money I already have for my medication, which is $100 every 10 days. So instantly I'm financially stressed. Then I end up getting a letter from the Canadian government saying I owe them $2,000 because in 2020, when the pandemic started, Canada had a COVID relief program that I had to go on because I lost my job. And they wanted the money back. So they were like, hey, give us $2,000. And I was like, I can't do this. Then around that time, my neighbors had a cockroach infestation, decided to just bounce. They just fled after bringing in all those cockroaches, and then they came into our house, and then we had to deal with cockroaches to the point where I literally had to cancel all my evening plans every single day to like clean and kill cockroaches for days. And I also felt sick, and I also was like stressed out financially. During all this, of course, there's like typical relationship things coming up, family issues, like regular life stuff was also getting to me. Work sucked. I got a concussion at some point. Going further into the summer, I had this absolutely terrible week where on Wednesday I ended up having someone pass away in my life. And then Thursday, my doctor gave me news that there was a bunch of surgeons and specialists that would no longer see me and that my health issues are becoming unfixable. Then an hour after that, still on Thursday, my partner broke up with me, and they told me it was because they were having some mental health issues and felt like they couldn't deal with that within a relationship, which, like, you know, fair enough, but at the time it really blindsided me because I didn't, like, I thought we were endgame. I was more in love with them than anyone else, so that was crazy. And then the next day, I ended up going to work. That was a big mistake because every customer was awful. My mental health was just going down and down to the point where Friday evening I wanted to kind of distract myself, and so I went out with my brother to go thrifting, and I almost had a meltdown in Value Village. Like, I was gonna lose it. I felt the tears coming. So I ended up spending the rest of Friday night crying to my mom on the phone for like 2 hours, and then when I hung up, just kept crying until I fell asleep. Then we get to Saturday. I was just like cold, naked, crying in the morning, just in my bed, not wanting to go to work, but I had a 3-hour shift, and I was like, I can do this. This is fine. Once again, shouldn't have went to work because as soon as I got there, I got hate crimed from this extremely awful transphobic dude that my boss is friends with. So of course she was like backing him up, and I lost it. Ladies and gentlemen, I knew I was gonna start crying, screaming, doing something. So I packed up all my stuff and I just left in the middle of my shift. And my boss was trying to understand what was happening, and I just like, I left, I ignored her, I was shaking, I was crying, I was driving back home with no music. That's how like intense I felt. And then I got home and I was just panicking. So I phoned my parents again. And this is like the best part about this story is I like never call my parents for emotional support because they're not great at it. But I don't know, they really came through during this week and they ended up driving over right away. I had a mental breakdown in the kitchen. I was crying and ranting and nothing made sense, and they just held me, which was pretty awesome. And then, as you may know, I grew up in the countryside, so my parents kidnapped me to their house and I spent a few days up in the trees, up in the hills. I literally went on this hike out there to the top of a hill and just like sat there in the wind just trying to process like this week, let alone this whole year, and it was good. I needed to do it, but like, you know, very intense. And as much as I want to say it's only been good from there, the government ended up asking for another $2,000 after that, which didn't make sense because I already paid for it. But if you've ever dealt with any government payment system, it is like the most painful, drawn out, frustrating process in the world. So that still went on for a while as I was trying to dispute the second $2,000. And you know, I still have health issues. I'm still going to the doctor every week or two. But as it stands, I'm doing really well. And a week or two ago, I was thinking about this and I was like, why? Like, how is it that I am not only okay, but just like genuinely happy right now? And after thinking about it for a while, I realized a lot of it is attributed to the extreme sensitivity and the crybaby parts of me that up until recently I've felt very ashamed of. I've talked about this before, but I grew up with foster siblings, and you know, everything to do with social services is fucked up. Like, it all comes from systemic issues, racism, and it is never a good situation. Kids getting taken away from their home is extreme, and there's always so much mental and physical and sexual abuse that comes from it, whether they have been taken from their home because of it or it happens in their new home. It is a very dystopic world, and I was always the oldest kid in these foster houses, and you know, these kids never trusted adults, so I was the one that got confided in. You know, if they got raped, I had to be the one to help them process that. If there was theft things going on, I was the one that had to figure out the moral ground. It was a lot for me to deal with at a young age. And like, when I say that, obviously the things happening to my siblings was a lot to deal with as well. But what I'm trying to say is I already had all of my emotions of growing up on top of the weight of theirs. And so from a really young age, I just had so many feelings. But my parents didn't like that. Whether I was too happy, they'd tell me to calm down, or if I was too sad, they'd tell me, suck it up, put on your big girl panties, don't be a crybaby. Getting shut down like that is never productive, but that's how I grew up. And I entered my teens to early 20s still taking on this sort of role where in relationships I was more of a therapist than a girlfriend, and with friendships I was the one who had to tend to suicidal friends who knew the darkest, deepest shit about other people, but I didn't reciprocate that to them, right? It was a very one-sided sort of thing going on. It mimicked my childhood. And this wasn't a matter of like me bottling up and penting up my emotions. It's just that I couldn't be messy around people because I had to be the Rock. Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. I'm sorry. I had to be the stable one, right? The one who could empathize or share my own trauma through stories, but not actually process my trauma with another person. It took me such a long time to get out of that cycle. A lot of suicidal thoughts and attempts and spiraling behavior, self-destructive behavior. I think I was 22 when I finally went to therapy because I was still feeling like I wanted to die and simultaneously being like, I'm 22 and I feel the same pain as I did when I was 16 and it has to stop. So I ended up biting the bullet financially, going to therapy for exactly a year, and it helped a lot. Honestly, most of my internal development and what I've learned about myself has actually happened after therapy. But that year, I was really able to just spill it. Just tell my therapist everything that happened to me. Have someone actually listen to me and validate the thoughts and feelings I've been so ashamed of all my life. I really needed that starting point so that when I left therapy, I could better identify and work out that sort of shame. Now that leads us to the present day. So let's take that example of my really horrible week, right? If that happened to me at any other year than this one, I would have spiraled 100%. If that week happened in the past, I would have had such self-deprecating thoughts. My mind would have felt like toxic sludge, just like overthinking, spiraling, scary thoughts. I would have messaged my friends and said, hey, just so you know, I'm going through a rough time right now. I'll talk to you in a few days. I would have been alone, feeling proud of myself for not putting on that shit to other people. Meanwhile, wrecking my mental health. And once I'd come out of that week with any sort of sense of stability or balance, then I would have went to those friends and said, just so you know, this is the stuff that happened. And they would respond, oh my gosh, I didn't know, are you okay? All that stuff. I don't do that anymore. Because I always assumed a therapist role in other people's lives, and because my family so harshly shamed me for having intense reactions and emotions, I felt so terrible if anyone saw a messy version of me. We all have messy versions of ourselves. That exists in every single human. But if I were to cry, sob, say awful thoughts, I couldn't do it. I could only speak about those moments after they passed, so I could maintain this pristine, solid version of myself. That's the main thing that's changed this year. During that week, you better bet that the people in my life got updates. Like I said earlier, I was on the phone with my mom crying for 2 hours. I was sobbing, I was incohesive, I was saying shit that I wouldn't say now, that I don't even know if I really believe, but I was just expressing and going. When I got hate crimed at work and walked away, I still held my boss accountable and said shit to her because she needs to know how I was feeling and how that hurt. I didn't want to tell her days after it passed that I didn't like the way he was speaking to me. No, he was literally so awful and vile. It was a, how dare you let him speak to me that way? How could you be friends with someone like that? If you're wondering how I made that switch from telling people about tragedies after they happen versus whilst they're happening, it's because I've changed the way I communicate these states. So in the midst of something traumatic, something so heart-wrenching, you know, I'll reach out to someone, I'll say, hey, I am not doing well at all. I feel so bad. Can I tell you what's happening? And, you know, if they say yes, I say, okay, but I just want to let you know, everything I'm about to say is an emotional reaction to what's happened. I don't know if I genuinely believe these things yet, but I'm overthinking it and I don't want to spiral. So I'd like to share with you what's happening and how I'm feeling about that right now. Right off the bat, I communicate, this could be wrong. This isn't me as a person. But here it is. Here's a piece of right now for you. That has helped me significantly because my friends, my family, whoever I'm going to has showed me love and support to the worst version of myself, to this version of myself that I felt shamed for so long. Then when I come out of the situation, I give them an update, a more cohesive version of my new feelings, and they are proud of me and they love to see the growth. And they also love the version of me that I've been wanting to present. They love both. And, you know, that just leaves me with this feeling of, if you accept me that way, of course I have to. You listened to and held this fragile, messy, gross, sobbing version of me. You listened to me say awful shit, and you still went, I love you anyways. And so how am I to feel shame of myself when no one is trying to make me feel that way? It's just a internal little voice that was placed there in my childhood. So yeah, despite this year being batshit crazy, a lot of compassion has come out of it. Although I like myself a little more every year, I feel like I've taken a very big step in 2022. I'm so kind to myself now, and learning to like all these little versions of me, all these reactions I have, has made self-care so much easier. You know, the last month or so, I got some tattoos and I dyed my hair. I've been having fun with my makeup again recently. I picked up photography. I've been reconnecting with some old friends. And my mom and I have been closer than ever because every time she calls me on the phone, I end up learning a little bit about our family and things to do with my migrant family specifically. They're not always good things, but things that just make me feel more at home and more sure of my identity. And it's because I'm like this clean slate of a person who has released and cycled through all of these feelings and emotions, and I'm like able to bounce back so quickly now. And it's cool. It's genuinely sweet. Like, I'm not kidding. The other day I was getting ready for work and I was just like looking at myself in the mirror while doing my makeup and got giddy. Like, I looked at myself and got giddy. That's never happened. That's only happened with people I've had crushes on. And now I'm like, do I got a crush on myself a little bit? It's really, really cool. So this has been a bit of a longer video, but I've had a lot of fun talking to you about this because I'm very passionate about self-development and becoming the person you want to be. So if you're on that journey as well, I hope what I've said today helps or gives you a little bit of a direction. Otherwise, maybe it was just a nice little story time for you. But yeah, I hope you have a really good day. If you've also been having a rough year, we're almost at the end. We're gonna make it out. You are great. You are lovely. You are amazing. If you want to see more content from me, you can hit the subscribe button. Make sure to like the video and comment as well. And I will see you soon. Bye.